The next point is we've discussed about the charges and all that, but I think the recent development is the DO fees which came into light. I think different parties have different views, but I think we would like to make this a forum to get their different views, to understand how it will impact the business, whether it will further create issues for the lines or the NVOCCs who's always been highlighting the lack of charges. But from a shipper's point of view, they see it as a positive. But I would like to hear it from you all to see how does the market perceive this and your thoughts on this.
Okay, that's a timely question, and thanks for posting it. The very reason, if you really look at the reason as to why it was brought in, before this was brought in, there had been 40 odd surcharges or additional charges that are levied to an import of this country, where it went up to about 50 to 60,000 rupees to collect a delivery order from a service provider. So if you put it into the practical aspect, the kilo of dal that you purchase from your next door shop, or 1 kilo of sugar, so that boils down into that aspect as well, right? So it has a contribution to the cost of living in this country as well, right? So we as a association, we believed that it has to be controlled, where because when it's come to the cost involved in bringing down a shipment into Colombo, when you pay 50,000 rupees as a DO fee alone, how are you going to trade in this country, or how are you going to run a business in this country? And with that, we actually welcome this move. We as shippers, as manufacturers, and it is obvious that there are positive and negative comments to this move. So which is a good sign, because we have discussions to ascertain and to understand the decision that was given by the DGMS, whether it's right or wrong. The discussions are going on, but still, but we as an organization or an association, we welcome that, and we see the importance of having a complaints handling committee that was set up with that document is another good move, because now there are even after the regulation is or the direction is given by the DGMS, there are enough and more forwarders or shipping lines that charge more than what is expected to be charged to a consignee, right? So to evaluate that and understand what the reason behind, and what can you do from that point onwards, setting up a committee comprised with the stakeholders of this total value chain is a really good move. So that is and basically the regulating the structure of charges is what has brought in, and we as an organization association representing the majority of shippers in this country, we welcome that.
Roshan, your thoughts on this?
Much debated and discussed subject, Naveen. Now say till about 2012, 2013, the industry operated as a self-regulated industry. There were no regulations. But if you ask my opinion, my association opinion or my personal opinion, we should allow the free market forces to prevail. The industry should not be regulated. So that's point number one. Leaving that aside, now the regulations are there. So if the regulations are there, and then the other question is how these regulations came in. So there are stakeholders, service providers and service receivers. So the regulations on service providers came in without any consultation on the service providers, right? So the next day when you get up in the morning, it's regulated. So there should have been a consultative approach, which is not there. So the regulations were brought in. But the reasons for regulations to come in, what Imalka pointed out, agreed, some were charging exorbitant charges. But then again, it's a question of many or few. It was few. So even look at sometimes the protests, it's few, but the environment get disturbed. So but anyway, regulations came in. So then through the regulations, then all the stakeholders, service providers got together, and again many were adhering to the process. So but after about 6 or 7 years now, then we looked at the market, we all realized, yes, there are again exorbitant high charges being levied on the customers. So then we had the requirement of revisiting and making sure all fall in line, right. So that is where the maybe from last December up to now there have been lots of discussions. So this new circular was issued. So there are, I mean if you look at the liner part, main liners or the NVOCCs, and the another point is the LCL charges, that's for the consolidators and the freight forwarders. Number of sections were discussed. So the SLAFA's point of view when it comes to this new regulation which came in, yes, we welcome. That is to live within the regulations, because otherwise who go by the law get suffered, right. So the and then the still there are areas to be sorted out, because there are parties who have grievances, right. So there are SMEs. So there are companies who does the certain areas, say the consolidation in a smaller way, but there are companies who live on the consolidation, and say even if you look at the, so NVOCC operators, there are charges which you got to pay to certain things. Then the point what I want to highlight here is, that is point number one, we are against regulations. You should allow the free market forces. Number two, if the law is there, you need to comply. I mean, you need to adhere by the law. But having said that, all parties need to be reasonable to, and also you should be willing to revisit the law if that to be changed for the benefit of the industry, certain stakeholders. But if you say this is law, and there's nothing can be done, this is law, then we are trying to create another disturbance. Within, again, the same question of unity and the respecting each other should come in, and if we need any amendments, we should sit together with an open mind for the correction. So that's
your points. What about CASA?
I think the CASA's point of view has been very straightforward. Whilst we do agree that there were various charges being levied which eventually brought in this law, I would say, through the back door. But now that the law is there, what I feel is that how it's being enacted is totally unjustified, because the law says a shipping line can charge a documentation fee, and if they got to increase it, they got to make a request to the Director General Merchant Shipping. Nowhere in the law does it say that the Director General Merchant Shipping can shove a fee down anybody's throat. So he can't fix rates. So it has to be a rate that has been filed by the shipping agent. So that's where CASA stands aside with the direction that has been given. What we are saying is, look, by all means, if we want to increase the price, okay, we make a request. Either the DGMS accepts it or not. But please permit us to charge what we have filed, because the law doesn't say that the DGMS has the right to control or fix rates. But in respect of the grievance process, yes, we fully accept it. I think the grievance process has to be there, because there has to be, if somebody is being overcharged, he has the right to report it to the authorities and find a suitable response to that. And action should be taken against whoever has done the wrong thing, which we find is also lacking, because okay, if somebody is overcharged, the DGMS has all the right to penalize him and say, look, if you do it, we will fine you, or we will cancel his license or something to that effect. But if there is nothing of that sort happening, then the law also becomes without teeth. So I think whilst we do accept certain regulations need to be there, also more than that, I think free market forces should prevail. I think CASA's point of view has been very firm, saying, look, if the law says we can file a rate, we should be able to file a rate and charge that, not somebody telling us what to charge.
Shamal,
Yeah, I do agree with CASA Ikram, and partly with Roshan, what he mentioned, that we need to look at it, if there's a problem, we need to look at it whether it is few or more. I think this is few who are in the trade charging these exorbitant charges. And I want to correct Himalka also. He mentioned about the shipping lines, but none of the shipping lines are overcharging. Because they are even the circular, with the new circular with the DGMS, we can increase actually, but still we have not increased. None of the shipping line has increased because we feel is something wrong in this circular. So shipping lines are very fair, like we have been charging for the last few years the same rate. But again, Naveen, as Ikram also correctly mentioned, we need to all must understand this shipping is international business, and when we try to regularize this all these charges locally, just thinking locally to support one side, are we going out of internationally this the competition? So this is the main concern. So we need to look at before we do this, we need to study what's happening in Dubai, what's happening in India, what's happening in Bangladesh, what's happening in Singapore. So we need to do a proper survey, which I recommend to DGMS. You do a individual survey, you study everything, and then you try to propose something. Because when you issue a regulation, we need to circulate to our principals, and they question back us, what is this, why is this? In this situation, with this COVID situation, nowhere in the world is having such sort of a strict regulation coming in, because everyone is finding difficult to do business, survive in the market. Now with this regulation, because of few culprits, maybe majority of these SMEs, forwarders, going to suffer. So, this is the question. So in case, as Himalka said, some are charging exorbitant charges, why the consignee is booking through him? So he can inform the shipper, don't send the next shipment because he's charging 60,000 rupees DO charges. So please don't use him. So you can use direct line, you can use forwarders who charge fair amounts. So why you try to regulate something which entire world is not done? So which bring very negative aspect again about Sri Lanka, and I think it's slow now, but we need to revisit it, because I feel there's a unfairness. And as far as shipping lines, we are not affected and we are not overcharging it, and we are actually supporting the forwarders when we issue the master DO by maintaining still that lower amount, and we are ready to continue with that. But the main thing is we need to look at it, the high number of SMEs, the small time forwarders who are in the business for a longer period, now finding difficult for them to retain their staff, because the revenue has dropped because of this. And so this is going to be a major impact, because maybe high number of staff going to lose their employment. And also I think we need to strengthen the law here, because if you have 10-15 containers, you can start up a NVO company. So we need to categorize NVOs A grade, B grade or C grade. So we need to see, if you see the all reputed NVOs, which including Harsha knows that, and they do a reasonable business and they don't do this. But there are few guys just coming up with a computer and saying, I am having a 10 containers, I am opening up a NVO and charging DO fee 50-60,000. So these are the areas we need to catch. So that's, we need some sort of a control with the DGMS, and then I think it's not a serious matter to legalize charges, because I think majority 75% is charging usual charges, and only few charge exorbitant charges. And this the proposed complaint handling association, all representatives are there in that. So that association can handle this, then easily can identify this who are charging high, and then we can DGMS can warn. We don't want a law for that. So when you bring in a law and you are putting internationally, showing them again, you are controlling collection to international business.
Thanks. I think Slana has made a lot of voice in this matter and then already written to DGMS on this. So Harsha, what is your opinion?
Yeah, to add to what Kasa, Ikram and Shamal said, we also with a similar thinking. that actually it has impacted NVO agents the most. This recent ruling, which was a notice, I believe. So, I mean, our governing, authority is the Director General Merchant Shipping. He has been doing a good job, and you do need some governance, of course. And I think during the lockdown, especially, most of us involved in special committee meetings at the port, and that there was a lot of pressure given in defense of DGMS also, I must say that he was asked to flex his muscle and come up with certain rates for even demurrage and various other things. But when it comes to the DO fee, we are also very strongly on the opinion that since DGMS is the lawmaker and that people who have filed rates with them, and those can't be disregarded. So suddenly overnight, again due to pressure by importers, those filed rates, which after the filing of the rate, the annual license is being issued to NVO agents, it is more or less disregarded. It's up in the air. So and a new a regulation comes in which has hit us, where our members are hard hit, and actually where else a mainline got a benefit there by de facto. So while there are people who overcharge, yes, I have also seen in the complaints committee wild overcharging, those things have to stop. And there are rogue operators like it may be a NVO, it may be a freight forwarder, LCL, DO, it could be anything. Not very unlikely it wasn't a main line, I must also say that. So those things DGMS can take a strong stand, but then bringing in legislation without also for NVOCCs, our charges, because it's in discussion, I don't want to mention any rates, but we will go back and we will get our charges. I will work on that, because he is the authority. When he sees the valid points which were given to him before 5 years ago and agreed upon, have again overnight vanished. So and one rule for all, main lines and NVOs are completely different. Yes, we are box operators, but it's a completely different operating model. That's what we have been saying. And niche areas, and Sri Lanka needs NVOCCs. I think not much paper articles or studies have been been written about this, and how we engage with perishable cargo, project operators, again liquid, and the tea industry. So these we will show more about what our partnering industries are, and the importance of having fair play in these industries as well. And I must mention that yes, there are many of the NVOs so-called are now the top NVOs. Most of them are owned by feeder lines. They also have it may not be connected, but the same ownership. They are developing their own NVOs. So top feeder lines, almost every feeder line has an NVO arm. Plus there are independent huge meaning NVO size huge, 50,000-60,000 TEU carrying independent operators. And as Shama says, yes, there are some small players also. So the way I see as the association to handle that is, you can't restrict who's sending the box, SOC box. Even a Sri Lankan operator can buy 30 boxes and start sending it around, but it's the agent. You can have reputed agents who are under the DGMS guideline, and then through the agent you control that this overcharging is not happening, and give a fair play so that this continues in the future.
All right, so I think we got a mixed bunch of views, but I think the point is that they are okay for the governance part of it, but what he is trying to say is don't penalize everyone for few people's mistake. So I think that's the point that we have to take. But these are ongoing discussions, so it's not over yet.
Yes, and there can't be one law for every suits all in no country, and without deep understanding of shipping. I think that is what is needed in the future. So to bring in laws and legislation overnight to facilitate one part. I mean, here it's not one segment, but maybe it's importers. But still, you have to see what are the other service providers, their issues. And Naveen, one more thing which is a new normal is due to the banning of various goods from being imported. We are seeing people are getting special approvals and then getting them down, then their line ministry is approving it, then some other people are disapproving it, and then there is more. We see stagnant containers or uncleared containers in the port, which is, I think Shamal is the expert in this area, because as NVOs we have close to 100 boxes which are lying and uncleared by customs since so many years, and it's gathering, it's increasing rather than decreasing. But of course the customs DG and the DDCs have had special meetings with all of us to try and sort this out, but it's taking up space. I have seen Shamal mention this in numerous, I think the total figure is over 800, I believe, through CASA and main lines. So this is another adding problem where, I mean, detained containers has to be approved by, has to be focused on, and a solution given to the agents for fast release, which also reflects, as Shamal has always said, on the shipping lines outlook on the hub port status of Colombo, where we have to give solutions to return, because the line, now the box value I read out earlier, the values have gone up in the last 2 years. A box has appreciated, I think, in double or more the value of a box. So when it's stuck, a reefer box, even if it's stuck, it's not a acceptable practice by our principals, who are putting a lot of pressure on the agents to get these released. Actually, I'm having files I have personally handling to try and get these cleared.